second session is My Network Effects PLG Collab, brought to you by James Courier, Kyle Boyer, and Isaac Motors. You have a decision to make. Don't worry, there will be recordings available for you. Go forth and learn. We'll see you back here in 30 minutes.
Thank you very much, Adam, our MC and Grandmaster for the first ever PLX Summit. Today, I'm joined by two friends for this topic that we put together, and they're kind of like me. We're talking about how future founders and CEOs are former partner leaders. So I have Rob Brewster, CEO of GoForms. So Rob's background and story is former partner leader and now CEO of a company. And then we have Brian Williams, former partner leader, who's now founder of his own company. So welcome y'all to PLX.
Thank you, Jared. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Jared.
Brian,
great to be here, and well done. Week together.
And we got you from the other side of the world, so we'll be combating a little bit of a delay. Brian, you're out of your home base just outside of Melbourne, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, based down here in Melbourne, Australia. Start of my day here in the future, as we've previously discussed, Jared.
In the future, 5:30 a.m., folks. So if you have any complaints about, I can't do this, just look at Brian Williams, folks. He's joining us from 5:30 a.m. from Melbourne. Well, I want to do a quick temperature check on the current roles, et cetera, and kind of juxtapose where we're at. Rob, I want to start with you. You've seen a number of ecosystems kind of come into fruition and been a part of. So Salesforce, Eloqua, and Twilio. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And then you joined GoForms as the head of partnerships, VP of partnerships, right?
Head of sales, but that includes
okay.
partnerships. Yeah.
And now we're the CEO. I'd love to, juxtapose that real quick, and that transition. We did a great podcast episode kind of on that transition. But current temperature check. What I mean by that is, given the current economic environments and everything that we're going through in this partnerships moment, how do you feel being CEO of a company where you didn't start as CEO and now you're CEO? You feel like, man, that was all of this prior partnerships experience that set me up to be where I am today?
Without a doubt. I mean, I never had a plan to be CEO. This was never my career aspiration or, I sure want to be CEO one day. I was very happy being the partner leader. And like you mentioned, Salesforce, Eloqua, Twilio, I could even go back in time, BEA, Siebel, Epiphany. So I've been at some great places, and I was a sales leader or sales guy who became a BD guy, who then became, the BD leader at various companies. And to the point of, being CEO today and why all that matters, when you're the BD person, and you got to be the right BD person. Let's start there. It can't just be the BD person that does marketing things or the BD person that does, product things. A true BD person is really about revenue. And you generate revenue through a lot of different aspects of the company. But I worked closely with product, with finance, with legal, with the sales team, with the CEO. I mean, other than coding, I can't think of a thing I didn't do inside of those organizations as the partner leader. And now that I run the company, still no coding, but it's great that I did learn so many aspects of the business from all of those leaders. And it absolutely put me in a great position to be successful here.
Right. And then I see Jill Rowley's live with us here. So she says, what's up, Rob? And Brian, kind of temperature check on you. I mean, so you were kind of instrumental in helping build out the ANZ and APAC region for Xero, which I think is a phenomenal partner case study. We talk a lot about the HubSpot ecosystem kind of here at Partner Hacker. And I've really loved the Xero ecosystem and everything that we did. So it's been great getting to know you. That experience, and now you're starting something from scratch, cold start problem, right, with Hockey Stick. How might the current environment and your previous experience, help you be a Partner Hacker type founder where you're starting from nothing? How's the experience been of jumping in as a company of one and scaling from there?
Yeah, thanks, Jared. I think just the space that we're all involved with here, with us on the call and everyone who's listening in across the board, is that we do touch everything in every capacity ongoing. I know in my previous role, Xero, partnerships was just a component of the wider breadth of what partnerships is, whether it was the ecosystem partnerships I was building and growing, or marketing want to do some work. What partners can help with that? It was comms, want to do some comms release and stuff coming up. What partners can help with that? There's new product releases. Who else can help with that component, and every touch point to go with it. And as I've made the transition into helping other companies grow, given the opportunity and the size and the magnitude as other companies are increasingly investing in this space, it's other companies who also want to deploy these tactics and bring it to life. And, as we lead into these economic times, the appetite's actually getting stronger as how can partnerships help? And so it's really interesting times for all of us to really add value, to amplify what we can achieve and unlock what we all know it can be.
Totally. I want to transition now kind of like on that temperature check to why might this be more true now today than it was? The reason why I wanted to do this session is I made a prediction at the beginning of this year on the Partner Up podcast where I made 7. And one of them was the title of this is that future founders and CEOs are former partner leaders. And we have folks like I've seen Jesse Shipman here, and I could just go on and on and on of people that are in the partner hacker orbit that are friends of ours that I've seen go from, partner leader to founder. And tracking dozens of examples just like that. What advice might you give, Brian? Maybe we'll start with you, to a founder, future founder, someone in the partnerships role that's going in and going, okay, I'm going to make that leap. What have you learned that's like from your partnerships role to starting as a founder? What advice might you give them?
Yeah, you need to get deep cross-functionally and get to the level of success really looks like where you're consulted on everything that's happening right across the business, not informed, not working in silos in any touch point at all, but you're actually a key decision maker and to enable all aspects of the business. And if you look at the traditional CEO role where they build out a nice fluffy slide deck of a donut graph or a cascading tree of their team and pillar, you want to be right alongside every business department and influencing as a part of that. And so the deeper you can get involved with all across all business units, you've got wide, deep exposure around actually what's moving the needle across the board. And that sets you up not only for your immediate success, the short, the medium term, and the long term, and you've got deep generalist skills across the business and how it operates more than anyone else that's plugged in right across the business.
Well, I'm going to stop you there for a second, though, Brian. Let's go one layer deeper. Let's assume you've made the decision to leave. It's day one. Mm-hmm. You're starting a company. What have you learned?
Mm-hmm. What have I learned is that you can't
transition from partnerships to founder.
Yeah. I'm able to deploy my own ecosystem strategy and learn and build my network and all my partners around me to help grow and develop and scale to go together. And so, Jay McBain talks around spheres of influence. We've all got our own spheres of influence, which we can have to grow and scale. And so I don't see I've got a team of a just growing out a business from day one, Jared. I've already surrounded by this incredible network and people and best-in-class people to be able to go faster and stay lean and operate at scale ahead. And so that really excites me because I've seen the playbook from the inside and now I can deploy it from the outside.
Love it. Exactly that. Rob, what about someone in the position, because I'm aware of actually a handful of people right now that are about to be announced that are transitioning from a SVP of partnerships and sales type function to a CEO role. Sure. What advice might you give those people that are taking a formal step into the C-suite, kind of orchestrating the company proper, not just the ecosystem?
Yeah, clearly they earned the job because they were great at what they did. And to Brian's point, a lot of the things that he mentioned are what great partner leaders already do. That's the difficulty of the job, is pulling all those various aspects of the business and inserting partners and still having things work the way they should. So I think number one, you're clearly in the position because you did something correct. I would also say one of the things that always made me successful as a partner leader, and I think does the same as CEO, it's about great communication and it's about expectation setting. You've got to be able to say, not only to the departments that you're leading and or the partners that you're working with, this is why we're coming together. This is what I'm going to do and what you're going to do. And these are the expectations we have related to the relationship. I think that kind of communication is great with partnerships, and it certainly helps internally because that's where usually these things fall down, is expectations are not set properly. And so I think that's a big part that you do as a leader of what are you expecting from each organization and how do you expect partnerships to complement that.
Something else you said in the past, Rob, when we were kind of preparing for this session, you said you have to be the lead evangelist. Unpack that for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I kind of did with a chip on my shoulder, to be quite honest with you. A lot of partner leaders, I'm sure many of you out there are experiencing this today. it's always, many companies feel like, oh, you partner guys, right? You're the sales guys who couldn't cut it, but everybody likes you, so we made you the partner guy. So there's always that chip on your shoulder of, no, I am a great sales guy, and I'm going to show you, because now I'm doing something so much more strategic for the company. So just the idea of your ability to go evangelize what you're doing. And look, you got to do it with data. When I was at Salesforce, the first thing I did was build out all the dashboards that showed exactly how partners were influencing each region and that business. So you got to lead with data, but I will also tell you that you are always touting why this partnership is working and why they need to invest more. My mantra at Salesforce was partner early, partner often. That is what you have to do to make this thing work properly. And I was on the road constantly when Salesforce had a quarterly business review, a city tour, whatever the case may be. I was in that city, on that plane, in front of those partners, those executives, those sales teams, and making sure they knew what we were doing and how we were contributing.
Brian, changing the conversation a little bit over to you a little bit. You chatted a little bit about how like you could start with your existing network of partners and your influence. Isaac calls that social capital, if you will, and I couldn't agree more. And the reason why we have this event is I started to get a little bit sick and tired of the phrase "go to market." And I've spoke a little bit about what I feel like is living in market. So many executives and people in go to market, they spend so much time within their walls. How is this perspective of go to market, which is of course necessary, needed, versus living in market as a partnership executive? How do you think that changes your point of view as a startup founder, Brian?
Yeah, well, I think the concept of you don't have to go it alone, which we all preach, and the concept to be able to build out loud and to sense check and be vulnerable, remain authentic, and create as you go around it, right? And we're all partnerships, like Rob mentioned, is that you build and you foster and you water it and you keep making progress to go ahead. And in the same concept, if we're able to live in market and create what we're doing and make progressions and help not just myself win, but others win, then the capability to gain momentum, it continues to accelerate. And I'm finding that more and more, that the more I help others win and ask for help where I need to go about it, I'm helping them win. And equally, I just keep ramping up. And so it's incredible to apply the same principles which I used to use internally, externally, to gain continued momentum. And there's opportunities for all of us on this call to use that approach to continue accelerating whatever we're doing in our space.
Rob, you talked about this a little bit in your prior comments, that you had a chip on your shoulder and that there perhaps was a shared viewpoint of a partner leader stepping up into a CEO or founding role, that you were the failed salesperson, and but you were nice, so we kept you around. Outside of that, I'd love to unpack for a minute kind of like the unseen challenges of like we could cheerlead all day about, hey, partnerships, people, like, go lead the company. You can totally do this. What are some of the unseen challenges that you think you might have faced as CEO that you might not have expected, whether or not that was related to partnerships?
Yeah, I would. It's a great question. I think the biggest challenge I've faced is the areas there. I mean, look, we all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. That's a reality of any human. I am not an engineer, and I was not a product person. I was a salesperson. You could argue I was a marketer, and clearly I was a business development leader. So certain aspects of the business just kind of come natural to me. And there's other aspects of the business that are a bit more of a challenge. How to hire and evaluate engineers, how to think about product roadmaps. What part do you lead as the company? What part do you lead as your customer feedback? So there were a lot of things that I learned along the way. So I think a challenge might be that, somebody can go, well, you're the CEO and clearly you're in charge, but I probably have more domain knowledge about this area than you do. So I think there's a process where you have to be able to say, yes, I'm the leader, and ultimately I will be making these decisions, but you've got to surround yourself with people that really understand the areas that they bring to the table. And it's a collaborative environment. You've got to be able to sit down with these people and have those conversations around, what are you bringing to the table? How can I help you with that decision-making process? But ultimately lean on them, let them make decisions, and let them, quite frankly, succeed or fail. And then you iterate on that. Like, oh, we failed on that. Why? Let's talk about that in more detail. So I think a lot of this still goes back to, how you work with partners. These are the same things you do when you bring on new partners.
Totally. It's interesting. And there was a Sir Richard Branson quote, from way back when, seminal founder advice, right? You got to hire people smarter than you. And I don't think you go try and proactively partner with people that are worse than you, right? The whole point of partnering is to bring someone that brings some capabilities or something that you're not the best in market at, to your customer base, to your ecosystem. And I think that mindset and that approach of like, look, I can orchestrate. I am able to do that. So kind of overcoming that hump that it's not really that different with personnel and departments than it is with partners, right? You're putting your ego aside and saying, hey, this is what we've done in the past, right? That's you go and build an integration and you begin to co-market and co-sell that and build this new thing. It's because you weren't the best at that thing. If you were the absolute best in the world at that thing, why would you go integrate, right? You'd compete and, ideally win. Brian, I'd love to turn that back over to you, kind of going from, the Xero ecosystem to becoming a founder. What's something that, has kind of been like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, coming from partnerships to becoming a founder. What was something that might've surprised you or a challenge that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I think for me, more holistically, it's the challenge from employee through to entrepreneur, right? And everything that entails behind the scenes to be able to do it, right? And so, I'm lucky I've got a bunch of great conversations and a lot of companies I want to work with, but how can I serve them all at once? How can I scale myself? But hey, I still got to do invoicing and some admin work and clear email inboxes, and how do I get help around the edges? And so I'm looking to set up some systems now behind the scenes to help scale that. What's really cool is that I used to advocate for using all the tech that's available to be able to have a streamlined business. And I just present time after time of case study. This company used all this tech and they streamlined the shit out of all their operations and they scaled through the roof. And now I'm doing all that stuff myself. I've got like all the tools behind the scenes to be able to do that and bring it to life. And so can't underestimate that part of the business of actually building and growing the business, rather than collecting a paycheck, I suppose, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? So the three of us are kind of all in a very similar thing where we've had these experiences that I couldn't agree more. I mean, from day one, it was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And it's not just because we were in partnerships. It's because why would I do it any other way? So like, I want to assemble all of this content for this event. Like, should we try and produce it all? No, we're to partner with everyone, right? There's no like, oh shoot, how do I do this? Like from software to relationships and even like this event itself. So we're hosted on AirMeet, right? So it's like, okay, how am I going to do this? Well, partner with AirMeet. But we didn't just partner with AirMeet to use their software. It's not just a vendor relationship, it's a partnership, right? So we have a session with Mark Killens, the CMO of AirMeet, where we're going to be talking and having a conversation. Like partner-led everything is actually very possible. And I think you just have to get that mindset and not get stuck in, okay, I have these 50,000 things to do. It's the same exact, advice like, hey, there's tons of tech out there. Go partner and do it. Remove the things that you don't need to be, great at. Outsource it. I've a piece of advice that I might give, turning the question back around on me, because I'm not sure where I heard this. I think it was in the early 2010s when I was running my own agency, but someone said, assign an hourly rate to everything that you're not good at and ask yourself if it's worth that time. So for example, it's like, okay, do you think you're worth $200 an hour? That's the equivalent of $400,000 a year. Well, shoot, I need to make more than that. Are you worth 300? Are you worth 400? Are you worth 500? And you need to get to a place to where you're not spending any of your time that's anything less than your ideal hourly rate. So it's like, you want to be $1 million, so that's $500 an hour. Okay, you want to make 2 million? Well, that's $1,000 an hour. Shoot, all of a sudden your time starts to become your most precious thing, and you realize the power of partnering. I'll transition this one real quick. So like we were just talking about utilizing all of this tech to help us automate, our lives as founders or executives. Looking at 2030, right now there's between 175,000 and 200,000 technology companies, ISVs. It's estimated by Forrester Research there's going to be over 1 million SaaS applications by the end of the decade. Forward-looking, lens, where the heck do we go from here? If this is like this partnerships moment, it's only going to get crazier where there's 1 million applications by the end of the decade. Rob, I'll kick it over to you.
Wow, 2030. That's some time frame, but yeah, I think like I mentioned, I'm here in New Orleans speaking at a conference for Procore. Procore is our #1 partner. They have a form solution, but they partner with GoForms because for many of their clients, we are the better solution. So when I think about 2030 and that many, SaaS companies out there, I think the key differentiator or the way that you're going to be successful is you need to make it as seamless as possible. It cannot be perceived by a customer that I bought this solution, you don't have this functionality, I have to go do research and figure it out and determine which one I'm going to use to solve my problem. I think, and this is not just a people problem. It's not like you put AEs or AMs on the line and they have to have a conversation. In 2030, we absolutely have to have the ability of a seamless solution that a customer can buy, whether that be on a marketplace, on a drop down inside of a tab inside of the main application. But customer experience and its seamless integrations absolutely have to be the key. I think that needs to start today, but it can probably be realized in 2030.
Brian, your thoughts on if everything that we're doing in tech right now, like I'll even frame this up a different way, brought us to today, and there's 200,000 roughly applications, it's going to be 5 times larger, and it already seems so noisy and so crazy. What's the rest of this decade look like for you, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I think like already right now, all of us in our pocket or within reach is our smartphone. And the reality is this is a bunch of band-aids of solutions probably that you've stumbled across or people recommend. And my interpretation of trust is the new data, which you love to say, Jared, is on the back of the fact that people are looking for like, just tell me what to use. I'm already overwhelmed right now in current instance. Right. And so whether that's for my personal life or for my business, or how I partner to go together, people just want to know what works and to be able to get on with it because they are burdened by choice. And so to complement Rob's points, I'm seeing ahead like frictionless, effectively workflows. And if I had 100 or 200 tools to run my business or my personal life, I just want that to look and feel like one streamlined solution, which is frictionless. And so if I'm operating my business or a partnership channel or my personal life, it just kind of all hums. And so as low code, no code, as partnerships improve, embedded experiences, marketplaces get more streamlined, it's just going to keep getting sharper, even though the solutions are going to magnify. And the good thing is, and for all of us in this space, is that most solutions don't try and do it all, but the combination of however you present that needs to feel like you do it all. And so the partner is to be able to enable that. And that's the exciting part where it's all coming together.
Yeah, I think working backwards from that experience is a very good point. I mean, you mentioned the smartphone, and it's amazing how in B2B, we can ignore the experience that we have in our pocket. And then all of a sudden we go into our desktop and we just think of it entirely differently. So if we unpack that a little bit, Brian, it's actually really interesting because your mobile experience is typically a pretty seamless experience that doesn't break. And you think like, well, Apple owns that. No, not really. I mean, you have all of these different applications that kind of interoperate and work pretty seamlessly to where you're rarely as frustrated with your phone and your consumer life as you are with your, B2B life, so to speak. And it's not that any of those applications don't have an opportunity for brand or influence. It's actually quite the opposite. And then you even have, influence and people inside of applications. So for example, Instagram, right? There's influencers selling you stuff inside of a platform, inside of, content inside of an app that's promoting another thing. So there's all these abstracted layers that just kind of interoperate and work. But when it comes to our B2B lives, somehow we're stuck in this in-between phase. But obviously consumer is upstream of business. And I think it's just it's not just a matter of time. I think there was a question, Ian from, is that Ian from Aircall? I think that's Ian from Aircall. I only know one Ian. So I'm going to guess it's Ian from Aircall. Yes, it is Ian from Aircall. He said, what are the main obstacles you identified for, Rob, your vision in 2030? I'll comment on that really quickly. I've been talking about these 3 C's and the 3 C's of like what it takes to change something from a leadership perspective. First, we have to establish curiosity. So like what's standing in the way of us getting here? Well, we have to get the leadership curious about it. And then it's probably going to take some hard medicine. So then it's courage. So we have to get leadership courage to like take this approach. And then the last step is conviction. It's like, we're going to make the bet. This is a top 3 priority. So I think we have to make them curious. We have to provide them with the courage to act. And then once you're at the conviction phase, then it's no longer an opportunity. It's a responsibility. Rob, what are the biggest obstacles you see standing in the way today for kind of how you were addressing the 2030 comments?
Yeah, I like the way you frame that. I would say I don't think it can be integrations as usual, right? It used to be you would build an integration framework and you'd say, hey, partners, I've got this integration framework, come and integrate. And that's the way it was supposed to work. I kind of like what Brian was mentioning around workflows. If it's going to be seamless, you really need to embed it into what you're trying to do. Like, there's still going to be all these main platforms out there, right? There'll be a Salesforce, there'll be a Google, there'll be a Amazon, whatever the case may be. If you decide that that's the area in which you want to partner, it can't be, hey, partners, here's my framework, come and work with it. To your point of conviction, you got to get in there. You got to decide, this is an area I'm partnering. I'm going to make it seamless in this environment, and I'm going to make it perfectly clear for those customers that need our solution that it's here, it works. And it can't just be the way we partner today, which is trying to partner at scale. You got to decide where you're going, and you got to get deep into that relationship, period.
Ooh, let's talk about this, Anthony. I really like what you're saying. Customers are going to start to have serious fatigue. I don't know about you all. I was talking to Isaac about this the other day, where there was this beautiful moment in time, like 2019, 2020, maybe a little bit of 2021, where it just felt like all of my tech worked. Like, it just worked really well. And for the past year, I feel like I've been just hitting things that are breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking. And I'm starting to wonder why. Like, this continuity of experience, I feel like hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse in a lot of ways. And I think you point out something really interesting, Anthony, that maybe I'll make a comment, then kick it over to you, Brian, is instead of just building our product, I think we really have to think about our product experience in every other platform. So how we, and that might even be a knowledge product. So what do I mean by that? It's not just about how you integrate with Salesforce or Marketo or Eloqua or Zapier or some other thing where you touch. It might also be the content or knowledge products that might exist on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or wherever the heck it is. In addition to thinking about, okay, it's not just an integration, that is a product. How do I make sure that whenever someone is interfacing with me in Xero, for example, that experience is what I want it to be? And it might have to be that the platform itself, whether it be Xero or something else, you have to go push for new things, right? If the experience at the end, like, I remember at PandaDoc and HubSpot, like we were belligerent about getting new APIs opened up, and we had to validate that business case to fix the customer experience. Like, we had to push HubSpot to solve for our customers, and you have to do that as well. So that might be some of my comments on it. Brian, what would be some of your responses to Anthony's comment in chat?
Yeah, a great comment. I also like Scott's comment in there as well around, like, we're selling car parts when a customer wants a car. I really like that. The reality is, I think, Jared, the way sales teams has evolved is that there's all silos, as we all well know. And so you might have 50 AEs all selling their component, their car part to everybody united. And to Rob's point and what we mentioned earlier around workflows, then you need to drip feed in a full solution at every step of the way to go about it. And companies don't have to go alone. Those strategic decisions around what they build and don't build and where they partner up to be able to bring it to life, you just need to enhance that at every touch point, whether it's in onboarding, it's in product using, it's upsell, you're trying to drive ARPU, retention, the whole way. You don't have to go alone, and all those isolates, bring them together where it makes sense in a controlled and frictionless way. And then you are solving more of your customers' problems for what you're aiming to do, and you set up for long-term success.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the end here, and I just wanted to make a comment on like why this might be more true today than it was in the past. Our, former partner leaders, potentially future founders, and what does this all mean? Every single person here today, this proves the point. This is the largest event in partnerships history. And it's because there's so much interest and enthusiasm and excitement. Like, no one would be here today if this was not more possible today than it was in the past. I don't think we all would have been here 2 years ago. This is a very special moment for all of us. So I want to thank you, Rob from Go Forums, Brian Williams from Hockey Stick Advisory, both practicing what you preach. I've tons of comments in the chat and people going, Brian Williams, he helps first, he gives first. And then look at Rob Brewster. He's at his #1 partners conference talking there as a CEO. I mean, we're practicing what we preach. We're giving you all this content for free. Thank you so much for coming to PLX Summit, everyone, on Partner-Led Startup Day. This is a blast. I can't wait to do this for years to come with everyone here. So we will see you all at the next session. I'm going to kick it over to Adam to transition us over in the live announcement. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.